皆さん、こんにちは. Today's topic is passives, and the goal of this video is to give you a bunch of contextual examples from Japanese TV where you can practice listening to and also making passive sentences. So I'm going to assume you already know how to make a verb into passive form, and from there you probably already also know the cookie cutter structure of a passive sentence, which is the quote-quote victim wa quote-quote villain ni, and then passive verb representing the action done to the victim by the villain. So for example, here we have the Japanese version of the first Harry Potter, and in case you're not familiar with the scene, this is Harry and friends in a life-size chess match, and Ron says this.
この次の一手で僕はクイーンに取られる。
次の一手で on the next move, and then the victim, which is Ron, 僕は villain, the queen, に passive verb, 取られる. I will be taken by the queen on the next move. Okay, so let's transition into an example where you can actually practice making passive sentences. So in this show, they are going to show you a cutout, a cropped picture of someone's face. And you will need to guess based on that cropped picture whether they are eating something or if they're being eaten by something. So it kind of sounds weird, but for example here, this cutout of this little girl here, based on this cutout, can you guess whether this girl is eating something or if she is being eaten by something? If we look at what the full picture actually is, she is being eaten by the giraffe. So how would you describe this scenario with a full passive sentence as we just described? Pause the video, think about it now. Okay, so one way you could have said this is この女の子はキリンに食べられています. Or you could have used the short form 食べられている. You'll notice in this show they say 食べられてる instead of 食べられている, where they omit the E near the end. And if you've only studied from a textbook, you might not know this, but dropping that E near the end is often done in more casual or conversational situations, just so you know. Anyway, let's go to our next example. So, based on this cutout, can you tell if this man is eating something or if he's being eaten by something? Let's take a look at what's actually going on here. He is being eaten, or in this situation more precisely, he is having his ice cream, that's an ice cream cone by the way, he's having his ice cream eaten by the bird. So why don't you try and make a passive sentence that describes this situation where it's a little bit more complicated. Pause the video now. Okay, so you would say この男は鳥にアイスクリームを食べられています. And notice that it's a tiny bit more complicated than last time since the action being done to the victim involves a direct object. The bird is eating the ice cream, but it still follows this general passive structure that you know. Where it gets kind of interesting is sometimes you can actually omit either the victim or the villain and still have it make sense based on the context. So let's see that in this example from this drama where you can see this man is trying to ask this older man for a favor, and what he's doing right now here is called dogeza, where you bow down on the floor sort of in deference as a signature of, symbol of respect to the other person when you're asking for a favor or you're apologizing. And this drama is actually kind of making fun of that because what he's doing right now is obviously, now it's not dogeza anymore. It's just like a ridiculous looking like plank or something. And then the drama takes it even farther where he he does another ridiculous pose like this. But listen here now to what the man says.
人に見られると笑われますよ。お願いします。
And let's listen again at half speed.
人に見られると笑われますよ。人に見られると笑われますよ。
Okay, so as you can see, there is no victim in this sentence because it doesn't need to be said. It's already obvious from the context that the victim is this dude doing weird ab exercises on the floor. And you'll notice that this actually has two passives in the same sentence. The first part is 人に見られると, so the conditional, if you are seen by someone, 笑われますよ, you will be laughed at. So this is a really demonstrative example of how passives might look like in a real scenario. I also just want to point out that you cannot do this in English where you omit the victim, the subject, because it doesn't work. You can't just say, if seen by someone, will be laughed at. You need to have that, if you are seen by someone, you will be laughed at. You can't do that in English. So this really cool aspect of Japanese where it's a contextual language and you can omit stuff like that that you can't in other languages. Anyway, let's look at our next example here. Okay, so here we have a little girl who is asking her mom here what happened to her little sister who the mom is holding right now. And the mom is about to say, it seems she was bullied at school. So try and pause and translate that into Japanese. Remember, we were just talking about how you could omit the victim or the villain or both, depending on the context. So why don't you pause and try that now? Okay, so let's see what she actually says.
学校でいじめられたらしいの。
学校でいじめられたらしいの. So here she omitted both the victim and the villain, because the victim, again, it's very obvious from the context here that the victim is, you know, the little sister crying in her arms right now. And the reason that she omitted the villain as well is because it's not particularly important who in particular bullied her in this situation. It's just important that she got bullied. So you can see that you can actually create passive sentences without specifying either the victim or the villain, like in this case. And just notice also that rashi is used at the end here because it's secondhand information. The mom wasn't directly there when the sister got bullied, but she heard that she was bullied. So that's why rashi is used. And then also the sentence final particle no, it sounds kind of feminine. Okay, next example. Okay, so this guy right here, he is telling this other dude about something that happened 10 years ago, and there's about to be a flashback.
もしあのタクシーに乗れてたら違ってたかもな。あのタクシー?
Okay, so this is the flashback from 10 years ago. Tries to get a taxi, but then this weird dude takes it instead. Okay, so what he's about to say is, I had the taxi taken from me by a weird man. Pause and translate that into Japanese. Go. Alright, here's what he actually says.
変な男にタクシー取られたんだよ。
Okay, so 変な男にタクシー取られたんだよ. So you can see that again, the victim here is omitted because it's already very clear from the context that the victim is the man himself. And also small notes here, you could have said taxi o torareta, but this guy omits the o particle since in conversational casual situations, the o, those kinds of particles tend to get omitted. And then instead of torareta, he actually says toraretandayo. And that's it's kind of adding the nuance that he's explaining this because he wants to give the reason why he did not get back with his girlfriend. So that ndayo is kind of adding that, oh, this is why I didn't do that kind of thing. All right, so I have one last example that's a step up in difficulty, and it's mainly for you high flyers out there who want a bonus challenge. So here we have a worker trying to go up to her boss to ask her some questions, and this boss is kind of mean. So she's getting really annoyed at this employee asking her all these questions, and let's listen to what she says here.
今私あなたに質問した?
今私あなたに質問した? Did I ask you a question? And notice that she uses anata here, which if you don't know, using anata for you depending on the situation can be kind of rude. But in this situation, there is a power differential where this boss is the superior to the employee, so it's not as inappropriate to use it here. But still, you can kind of tell that the boss is talking in a demeaning way to the employee. But what the boss is about to say is, the only time it's okay for you to speak is when you are asked a question by me. So see if you can figure out how to translate that. This is a pretty tricky one. It's okay to use anata, it's okay to use the casual form of verbs, and the word for speak that she uses is shaberu, and in te form that would be shabette. So hint hint, you'll probably want to use that. Alright, pause now and try to translate. Alright, let's take a listen.
あなたが喋っていいのは私に質問された時だけ。
And one more time.
あなたが喋っていいのは私に質問された時だけ。
Okay, so I'm not going to go into great detail about explaining every single nuance of this sentence, but I do want to emphasize a few points. So, number one, you would normally say 喋ってもいい for the it's okay to speak part, but the も gets omitted in casual's context like it is here. Number two, the passive here is used as a qualifier for describing the noun 時. What times are okay for you to speak? The times where you are asked questions by me. 私に質問された時. Number three, you can think of this sentence as having two parts. The first part ends with no wa, and this structure makes up what we call a cleft sentence in linguistics. You can look it up if you want to learn more, but in a nutshell, it makes the first part before the no wa into a noun, and it places more emphasis on the second part. So you can kind of think of it as literally the act of it being okay for you to speak is only when you are asked questions by me. Okay, if you didn't follow all that, don't worry about it. That's why it was a bonus challenge. Good job on just making it through this entire video. お疲れ様です. If you found this video helpful, make sure to follow me on my Twitter, which is linked down below, and I post there basically every day. And make sure to also click that circular button on the left side of the screen to subscribe to this channel if you want more Japanese learning and practice through TV, JLPT, for your JLPT exam. じゃあ、またね